Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Honor Horton, and I work with Hunger Free Vermont, formerly known as the Vermont Campaign to End Childhood Hunger. We are a statewide nonprofit organization based in South Burlington, and our mission is to end the injustice of hunger and malnutrition for all Vermonters. And I'm joined by Nancy Lewis, and I'm going to turn it over to her so that she can introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Nancy Lewis. I've met a lot of you. I work for the Department of Education and Child Nutrition Programs, and I work with administering the summer food program. So I'm your go-to person at the state for any questions or getting set up to operate summer food.
And I also want to thank my colleagues, Laura Philbach and Jonathan Harris, who are working behind the scenes today to record this webinar, take your questions, and ensure that the webinar runs smoothly. Okay, so before we begin the webinar, we'd like to review the basic functions of the webinar technology. So you should be able to see a small side panel on your screen. This is where you can see audio information and ask questions. If your side panel is hidden, click on the arrow to open it. You can also use the arrow to minimize your side panel on your screen. In the audio window of the side panel, you have the option of using a telephone to call into the webinar, or using a microphone and speakers attached to your computer. We have found that using the telephone works best, and we urge everyone to call in. If you are using a telephone, the number to call, access ID, and the PIN number you need are all listed. If you're having trouble hearing me or having trouble with your screen, you can email Jonathan, jharris@hungerfreevermont.org, or you can call him at 865-0255. He's standing by ready to help you with the technology. Today's webinar is very informal and interactive. To get the most out of it, you need to be able to ask questions and participate in the discussion. So there are two ways that you can answer questions or ask them. You can ask questions by typing them in the question box in the side panel. They will be recorded in a file, so if we are not able to answer all of the questions in the time we have today, we will follow up with everyone after the webinar with answers to all the questions you asked in the question box. You can also ask a live question. To do this, simply click on the Raise Your Hand icon in your side panel. Laura will see that your hand is raised, and she will unmute you so that you can ask your question for everyone to hear. If you choose to ask a live question, we ask that you speak into your telephone. We've had trouble in the past hearing people using a microphone on their computers. So as I said before, we are also recording the entire webinar so that others can view it in the future, and we'll provide you with more information about the recording at the end of our webinar. Webinar technology is a great thing, but there are bound to be glitches here and there, so please bear with us if we encounter any difficulties today. That being said, let's begin.
So today's webinar really is informal, and we designed it to be an opportunity for both new and experienced providers to come together and ask questions and to share innovative approaches to making summer food programs successful. And we chose 3 focus areas for today. We based it on last week's conference and some of the hot topics we were hearing there, one being outreach or letting folks know about your program, transportation, and local foods. And some of you were there, so you'll be able to maybe recall some of those discussions. In addition, we're going to save some time for you to raise other questions or other concerns that you have. And as Honor said earlier, if we run out of time, we'll follow up with you directly to make sure that you get your questions answered.
First, we'd like to find out who's here on our call. So if you have been a summer food provider before, please type your name, your location, and your organization into the question box now. Again, if you've already been a summer food provider in the past, let us know. Yeah. So Laura's going to let everybody know who we have on the call who has some experience they can share. It looks like we have Karen Howry at ACA CVOEO. We have Nancy Chase from Onward at Williamstown Elementary School. Mike Raymond from the Vermont Achievement Center. And those are the people who have typed in so far. Oh, we have Rivendell School District, Nicole Randall from the Rivendell School District. And we have Michelle Carr. And we have, and Michelle Carr is from the Brattleboro Housing Authority. Thanks, Laura. Now, if you're new to the summer food program and on the call, if you would please do the same thing, type your name, your location, and your organization into the question box now. All right, and we're giving everybody just a minute to type that in, and then Laura will let us know who's on the call, who's new to the program. So far, it looks like we have Deborah Bucock from Berkshire Elementary and Carmen Jokum from Addison Central School. I'm sorry if I am pronouncing anybody's name wrong. We also have Melody Troy and Katie Murphy at Sunderland and Chris Croft from Bennington. Great. Well, it sounds like we have a good mix on the call, so that is fantastic. So we're counting on those of you with some experience to speak up and share your wisdom on this call, and no one should be afraid to ask questions here today because that's the whole point, whether you have experience or not. Okay, here we go. So our first issue that we're going to take a look at today is the question of outreach. How do you plan to make sure that parents and kids know about your program this summer? How will you have them commit to participate? And or for those of you who have some experience, how do you plan to expand participation from previous years? So now this is the time for you guys to talk. Either talk through typing into your question box or raise your hand. And Laura will unmute you so that you can ask your question for everyone to hear, or offer your comments. What tips do you have? What things have worked well? What do you think you're going to try? And let's just share our ideas so that we can all benefit from it this summer.
I have something I can say. Am I unmuted? Okay. So while we're waiting for some other people to respond, I want to, and this is Nancy, I want to just mention a couple things around outreach that we heard and talked about at the conference last week. One of them has to do with a new requirement this year that schools make information available, especially to low-income families, but to families, letting them know about food sites that are happening in their community over the summertime. And that is going to require sponsors and schools to work together. And so we heard of different ideas that people had. Some sponsors were already working with schools. They were sending flyers home at the end of the school year so kids could take them home and show their families the information. We also heard that people weren't sure how they wanted to do that. At the state agency, know we have plans to actually communicate directly with foods when we know which sites are going to be operating, especially in low-income communities. So this is something new that we'll be working on. In the past, we have worked with Hunger Free Vermont to make information available via the Vermont 211 line, which is an information line about services in the state. And then we also heard from people who run the summer programs and also who call folks in their community directly to say, hey, we're running a program. Do you want to help? Do you know about it? Do your kids want to come? So I guess there's a lot of, especially where we're so small here in Vermont and we often are in small communities and know people, there was a lot of communication directly between people. And we're going to hear about that a little more when we talk about local food and farmers. So I don't think anything beats that, having conversations, getting to know people, letting people know about who you are and what you do.
Thanks. It looks like we have a question from Michelle Carr. Michelle, I'm going to unmute you, and you can go ahead and ask your question. Oh, let's see. It doesn't look like it's letting me unmute you here, Michelle. If you have dialed in with your phone and followed those directions, then we should be able to do it, but for some reason this is not working. So, Michelle, if you want to try some other things with your phone, you can try that, or you can type your question in. In the meantime, I'm going to read a question from Nancy Chase, or a comment rather. It says, we had our first ever summer program which went for 5 weeks. All advertising for the program was done through school news, etc. The summer meal program was not open to the public.
Nancy, did you have a question about that, or you're just letting us know that you, sounds like maybe you had a closed enrolled site or camps where you were taking care of the requirements that the USDA has, that regardless of whether the site's open or closed or camp, you still need to let the community know that you're getting funds from the USDA. So I'm wondering, in your case, were you just letting us know that that was one of your means of advertising, or did you have a question about doing that? And I wonder, are you planning to do the same thing again this year? And if it wasn't an open site, was it, were you hoping to get more people into your enrolled programs or camps from doing that, or was it just taking care of that requirement that you let folks know what you're doing?
We have another comment from Deborah Bucock. She said, at Berkshire, we will be utilizing our weekly bulletin and menu. We could also send letters home to those students who had qualified for free and reduced during the school year. We might also be placing a notification in the local paper, the County Courier.
And I'll also mention, this is Nancy again, also mention that the USDA makes some door hangers, some generic printed materials, and if we planned enough ahead of time, we could actually have them modified a little more for the state. So there's an idea that you could actually go around the community and hang flyers on doors. So we've heard when we've been on sessions with other states, some really innovative things. Some wouldn't necessarily work in Vermont, like hanging a sign on the side of a city bus. But if you start thinking about all the ways that people get information in your community and other newsletters or other ways that people could hear about your program, you might it might benefit you. I think when we start talking about numbers are helpful because of the labor it takes to create meals. So we encourage folks to go for more kids at their sites, not only because it feeds more kids, but also because it strengthens programs financially.
I think that, Deborah, the actions that you were taking sound like really great ones. And what I've heard from other program sponsors throughout the state is that the personal connection often is really what makes the difference, especially sometimes with the families whose kids qualify for free or reduced price meals. So I know of a couple of programs that have worked with a volunteer, maybe somebody from the PTA at the school, if it's school-based, to actually call those people rather than just sending a letter, and really talking with somebody in the family to let people know what's available and the benefits. That sometimes that can really make a difference. And other places that I know people have gone to get help with outreach are to churches in the community and other kind of gathering places for your town or your area, where you can ask maybe for something. So the local paper idea is great for a bulletin, but maybe church newsletters or other places, that wouldn't charge you and would be a way to reach out to people in the community and let them know.
And I just want to clarify around confidentiality when Anor's talking about using other people in the community. In those cases, you wouldn't be letting people know specifically that a family qualified. Specifically, you would be more doing it as a group. Here are some people to call. So we do need to be careful about not divulging information that had come in on the free and reduced applications inappropriately. That really needs to stay confidential in the school. But if you are a food service person and you have access to that information, you can call directly without involving other people or breaking confidentiality. If you know it already for your food service program and doing your claims, then you have that information.
Hi, and I want to get back to Michelle Carr, who unfortunately weren't able to unmute. But she wrote in and said, the ways that BHA advertises are newspaper articles, radio interviews, PSAs, flyers to neighbors where sites are, school newsletters, tables at street fairs, flyers and bags at local food shelves, notice to local community action office, and count on closed sites to explain, you count on closed sites to explain the program to enrolled youth.
Thanks, Michelle. Those are all really, really great ideas.
And we have from Nancy Chase. She says, I'm unsure what we are required to do in terms of including children from the community into the meals program, or even know if we are required to do that.
Okay, Nancy, I got it. I'm going to be calling you and figuring it out with you to look at what type of a site that you're running, and we can talk about that. So that's really good. And if I'm thinking that's the best way to do that. If you think there's something else we should do during the webinar, just send in another question. But I will call you.
Karen Howery says, as per the rules of the program, we will be sending information to the local papers as well as contacting the schools.
So I just want to reiterate in general what the requirement is from the USDA, specifically for the summer food service program, and there is also media advertising required for the seamless summer option. But with the summer food service program, when you do your online application, there is a list of checklist items, and one of them is the letter, the outreach letter that you would send to a newspaper. There's also a place in the online application that you put some of the media outlets that you use, so which newspaper you send the notification to. So what USDA is asking is that you notify the community about when your program is running, the fact that you are providing meals and that you're getting money through this program. And we provide a sample letter that you can use that has information, and that could be modified, but at least gives you some idea of what needs to go out to the community. So it's a requirement that you let the community know that you're getting this money. If you're an open site, you want to be letting folks know what time the meals will be served, so that people know they can come in and get food, so the kids know what time the meal's going to be there and they can come in and get the food. So for an open site, it goes a little further because you want people to know when to show up.
And Nancy Chase wants to say thank you for the last answer to her question. And Carmen says, since this is my first year working with the high school summer program, which plans to be a closed site, and it's HS summer program, I will be doing the state required notice, but I already plan to be more involved with getting students involved next summer if I am asked to continue next summer by sending my own flyer to get the students excited about what the menus look like for the summer program, and doing a student survey at the end of this summer.
And then Nora and I are saying, yippee, that sounds great.
That's great, Carmen, and you know, we definitely have evidence from other people's programs and efforts that getting students involved, finding out from them what worked and what didn't work for them about the program, and you know, and then including some personal touches like what the menus are going to be, all those ideas Carmen just shared, that can really make a difference in expanding your participation and building the reputation of your program, which we know is such an important thing among students, to really help you expand year to year. So that's great. And I think we're going to move on to the next issue now, but if you did not have a chance to ask your question, we still invite you to type it into the question box, because we will have a record of all those questions at the end, and we'll be able to follow up with you individually to make sure that all your questions get answered.
So we want to move now to the topic of transportation, and we put 3 questions, but of course there are many flavors of this, and you may have your own ideas, but here's something for you to think about. Does your program face challenges related to transportation? How will you help kids get to your program, and who could you partner with around transportation? So again, you could we could unmute you if you want to speak, let Laura know, or you could type your question.
Are we still unmuted?
You know, I don't have to tell you, but we know that here in Vermont, transportation can just be a huge challenge, you know, in a couple of different ways, right? Both to help kids be able to come to the programs, especially if the programs are not all day and parents have to work, but also sometimes to get the food transported to the kids. If you're a sponsor who is working with multiple sites, and so we could have ideas around transporting food and how you make that work, as well as providing access to your program for the largest number of kids in your area.
Okay, looks like we're still waiting for comments, so Nancy will put in a few words here. So transportation can go both ways. It could be getting the kids to the food, or maybe it means getting the food to kids. We have sites that operate at playgrounds, at pools, so they're the food is being transported to where the kids are doing an activity. We have a site that follows a bookmobile and sets up, and the challenge there is, what do you do if you're operating out of the back of a car or a van or something? You have to make sure that you can still provide that meal site when it's raining, when the weather's bad. But there are opportunities to be innovative here, and I know we've heard early this year as we were working with different schools and communities around setting up sites, people know that there are kids isolated in their homes that may or may not have transportation. There may or may not be anything happening in the community, and people really need to, it's almost like a backing up a step and working with some other partners in the community to get some sort of an activity going, finding a location that the kids can get to. Maybe it means partnering with a church or some other community organization. We have people that partner with libraries. So you have to really think about that, because the whole idea is to feed those kids who, and often the kids that are most needing to get fed in the summertime and most likely to go without food are also the ones that are more likely not to have the transportation to get to sites. They may be more isolated. We also heard an interesting idea when a sponsor was talking about stopping serving at a certain housing project because she knew the parents weren't bringing the kids out. And we were, somebody came up with this innovative idea. Well, what if we had activities for the moms, like doing their fingernails, something that would motivate the parents to also come to the site? So that's another thing to think about. It's not, the kids may be motivated, but they are dependent on parents. So there are things that could interest parents also in the sites and get the kids there for food. And you can also, overlapping with the budgeting discussion, you can also sell food to or sell a meal to a parent as a way to get income. So there are other things that you can do that sort of meld this program with other activities that both feed the kids but also might provide more income or more financial opportunities.
Okay, we have another comment from Nicole Randall from the Rivendell Interstate School District. She says, transportation is a giant issue. We cover 3 towns, 1 in New Hampshire. Our bus company has been very flexible. We love them. We also use vans as needed to get the kids with staff driving. So that's great. Can you say a little bit more about what you've worked out with your bus company and give us a little more detail? Because I think that that might be something that other communities could tap into. So how does your bus company help out, and how did you build that relationship? This one is from Deborah Bucock, maybe along those lines. Students will be picked up by a bus, transported to the summer program in Richford. After they have participated and had lunch, there the Berkshire children will be transported to the Berkshire School for our program, and we will serve snacks to the children.
And Deb, I think we talked about that. You're partnering, right? Because that the Richford Playground is a summer food site that's been operating for a while. So this is saving you from opening your kitchen, maybe leveraging food production from another sponsor, and that sounds like a great partnership.
Oh, wait, we were about to move on, but it looks like we've got another one. Hold on. Thank you. This is from Michelle Carr. She says the 14 sites that the BHA has are in neighborhoods where children live. The large open sites are in community places where children gather, for example, town parks, schools, boys and girls clubs, and open neighborhood day programs. Our transportation challenge is getting the food to all of the sites on time. Doing away with the 3-hour time lapse will be a great help on this issue.
We partner with all the key organizations in town serving children, and we contract with the school year food program to prepare the food.
And so that's great, Michelle. It's really helpful, and it's for those of you who hadn't heard this already, may or may not know, the USDA has been listening to the feedback from sponsors of some of the burdens in administering the summer food programs. And one of their responses was to eliminate the required times between meals so that breakfast and lunch could be closer together, let's say. And so that's what Michelle's talking about. So instead of having to time everything as tightly as she was before, she had probably had many meals to get to many places all at the same time. This is going to help her coordinate a little more. And another thought that came up, and this is just off to a side, folks were saying that kids sometimes aren't ready right away early in the morning to eat breakfast. So this will give us an opportunity to serve breakfast a bit later, maybe when kids are more ready to eat. Just another thing for you to think about.
All right, so we are going to move on to our third issue. And again, if you have more to say or more questions about the issue of transportation, go ahead and type them in, because we will be able to send this out to everybody and also to get back to you. All right, so the third issue that came up quite a bit of discussion at the conference last week was the issue of local foods. So here our questions for you are: do you plan on using local foods in your program? What actions do you plan on taking to make this happen? And or what has worked well for you in previous years? So you can respond to those or ask any other questions that you have around this issue.
Okay, and here I will, while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I'll give you some thoughts that came up during the conference. One of them, and I think at the bottom of all of this, is that communication and forming relationships in your community. So we had sites talking about parents or farmers or growers in the community growing a row. And they were doing that for schools and also for the summer food program. So they're adding onto their gardens, knowing that their food is going to go to a program with the kids in it. And then, of course, there are programs that do gardening, or kids go to help with some of the gardens. And we know that that helps them get more excited. They're often know more about where the food comes from. They're more interested in it, more likely to try some of the vegetables and things that we can't get them to eat otherwise. So it's exciting to think about. They're also learning skills. They're learning, about where food comes from, and just great opportunity for learning about food and nutrition, and just a lot there. There's also we had one person talking a lot about how she had gone to a farmer's market in her community and started talking to farmers about her program, and they got excited, and she was able to form some relationships where they would then either grow specifically for her so she could give them the amount of crop that she needed, and they could plan together, and the farmers knew they had an outlet. Or also, sometimes farmers have too much left over or too much, at a harvest time that they don't have an outlet for, and you can get product maybe inexpensively or even donated. That might take a little flexibility in your menuing because it may come in at an unexpected time, but we were hearing about people who, when they had those relationships with farmers knew their program was an outlet for their food. There's, the gleaning. I went to a conference yesterday, Vermont Food Bank, talking about gleaning. So at the end of growing season, folks go out to the fields and gather up the remaining food that isn't going to be sold through the farmer's usual outlet. So it takes some learning about who's out there, who's doing what with gardening and food. But there's also a lot of excitement and interest in local foods, and we're hearing about a lot of volunteers and parents, people just being excited, knowing where their food is going, and that's going to go to feed kids and help kids learn in the community. So something to think about there.
Okay, and we have a comment from Nicole Randall saying that she would love to use local and she isn't sure where to start, so tips are appreciated. And we have another one from Deborah Bucock saying that our school has planted raspberries, blueberries, and a large garden. We hope to be offering foods from those. We also have parents who donate foods from their gardens or fruit trees.
Nicole, I'm wondering if you have seen any of the emails that have come out on our listserv via Vermont Feed or through the Department of Agriculture around the different conferences. There are different farm-to-school conferences that are happening around the state. Some of them are happening in the south now, and as the year goes on, they're going to be happening more up in the north. There are a lot of farm-to-school networks out there. It doesn't have to be farm-to-school. It could be farm-to-organization. And if you want, you can let me know. I could either check to make sure on the listserv, because we send those notices about the conferences out on our list, or I'd be happy to hook you into the, some of the sites or some of the things that I'm seeing that might help you think about this. But those conferences or those materials that come out of those organizations have lots and lots of ideas about connecting with farmers, connecting with local foods. There's a lot of training going on now about handling produce. What do you do with donated stuff? Different ways people are storing items, processing them when they get them. Of course, different recipe ideas, what to do with different foods, what works good with kids, what recipes get kids eating vegetables. So there's just lots of discussion out there. And it might be good for you to tap into that and then think about an idea that you might want to try, what might work in your community. I don't know what your community looks like and who's there for farmers, and maybe you don't either, and that's maybe really what the question is. So I'd like to help you with that.
Yeah, and just to respond to Deborah's comment, what she shared about how she's using the school garden and also parents donating, I think that could be another way in to accessing farm-to-school networks and starting to bring local products into the schools, is to reach out to parents and to community members who you already know. And to start creating your own network to bring fresh local foods into your school. It also, is great to have parents involved and feeling like they're connected to your program and contributing. That can really help to strengthen your program and expand it as the years go on.
And Nicole wants to say thank you, and please hook her in to the information you talked about. Carmen says, yes, I have already talked with the farmer that I use through the school year. She's very excited to offer me fresh veggies for the summer program, and I have to drive right by her farm on the way to work, which will make it very easy to get. I also know that there is a HS staff member who has fresh berries that I will be able to offer.
Carmen, that's fantastic, and I just acknowledge you for jumping in with both feet as a brand new summer food sponsor this year, and just all the great actions you're taking. I think your program's going to be fantastic this year.
So yeah, I'm just thinking about, especially, this is hard maybe for the shy introverts that some of us are, but nothing beats talking about your program, and you never know where you're going to be standing, in what line at the local store, at what gathering, that you're talking about the program that you're running, and you happen to, meet somebody that gets interested. So you just a lot of talking. Talk about what you're doing. Let people know what you're doing. You might be surprised who you'll form a connection with.
So Carmen says, so is it okay to accept donations of fresh veggies and fruits from parents?
Yes, it is. And I'm going to talk about this a little more because we've gotten some questions about how much processing can happen from donated products. So I know that you can certainly take things whole, fresh, anything, anything that you bring in and do the processing, cutting it up and whatnot yourself. What's unclear to me is how much processing in like a family, an individual's home on uninspected processing facilities. So could we have them grate the zucchini for you ahead of time? And that was one idea that somebody had. So that's an area that I think I need to explore more in terms of safe food handling. But taking donations of whole unprocessed local food is no problem.
And Carmen says, thank you. I am nervous but excited about the summer program.
We're not. You're going to be great.
All right, so those are all the questions and comments that we have on this issue. So we're going to move on. And we now want to sort of open it up. Those were 3 issues that were hot topics that we noticed, but now we would just like to open it up for any additional planning questions or concerns that you have that you'd like us to address, because we have a lot of experience collected on this call. So now, anything else you want to ask, go for it.
All right, I'm getting the word. I should talk a little more. Well, one thing I thought was an interesting innovation that was talked about at the conference, and this was from a really small school who operates only on a Friday, so only doing a summer food meal and delivers it to the local library on a Friday. She also prepares Meals on Wheels meals in that same kitchen at the same time. So she's leveraging her kitchen time to provide meals for another program. And I thought that was really neat. I wonder how many other opportunities there are to do that, because certainly your time, your labor, your time in the kitchen is worth a lot. And the more meals that you can get out of that, I think the more value you have for your time. So, thinking about budgeting, I think the financial constraints are a constant challenge for all of us. So I'd be interested in hearing any ideas anyone has about money-saving tips, but what you do to make the program viable, use of donations, use of volunteers. What is it that makes your program, what saves your program money, what helps you have a financially sound program?
Nicole Randall says, I'm wondering if it's possible to get a contact list of folks we can brainstorm with regularly or have more seminars or webinars.
I think that's a really good idea, Nicole. And yes, we could do a contact list. One idea that I'm having right now is especially for new sponsors, and I don't know if you're a new sponsor this year or not, but maybe we need a separate new sponsor webinar, but anybody could attend it. So that's a really good thought. Should we be doing something periodically through the summer, or maybe more often right now? Not sure exactly how to do it, that bring people and questions together. So when I call you, which I'm going to do, let's brainstorm on that together and see what we can come up with. And maybe Anor has some thoughts about that too.
Let's see. Do I have any thoughts on that? I think that it would be great for us to create a list of people around the state who are sponsoring summer food programs of various kinds. And so maybe Nancy and I can look at putting something like that together and sending it out to everyone. So you would just have some contacts, and you would know, who's doing larger programs, who's doing smaller programs, and maybe you could match yourself up with people who have a similar kind of program to the one that you're doing. So we can can definitely work on pulling together a resource list like that for folks. And then if anybody else has thoughts about, do you want more of these webinars, or do you want, what in addition to Nicole, who else is interested in expanding kind of this experimental project we've done this year?
And it's the timing for putting together the list gets a little tricky. So that we have different deadlines for the Summer Food Service Program to complete their online applications versus the Seamless Summer option. So during this month, during May, because we need to hit the end of the year school timeline, we need to put together a list of at least all of the open sites in the community, but maybe we should be putting together all, while we're doing that work, just put together a list of all the sites, all the contacts, adding some of those things in that Anor talked about, what is the sponsor type? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a community organization? How many kids? How many sites? All of that. Making a little larger list beyond what we would send out to families through schools that we could provide to other all the sponsors and the school food authorities that are providing summer food, so that you would have a little network that way. And then we can think about how do we bring folks together again. Is there something we should be doing to network folks more? The challenge with summer is it happens so quickly. It happens, some sites operate just for a week, and so putting all those pieces together. But I think that's a really good idea in terms of support and learning and helping each other.
Okay, we have Gail Cornelius has her hand up, so we're going to try this again. Gail, I'm going to unmute you, and then you can go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead, Gail. Oh, Gail just wrote in and she said, I'm sorry I joined late. She doesn't have a question, but she really likes the webinar method for putting out material.
Thanks, Gail.
And Karen Howery says that she didn't like the webinar idea. I have done the program for 17 years and have found the yearly meeting difficult to attend. This idea works fine. And then Gail says she would also like to find out how to see other webinars.
Karen, I'm wondering if you have been to the Hunger Free site under Education. That's where the first two webinars that we posted. But I could also send you some links to some of the webinars that have been available. Maybe I should do this to all the participants through. Yeah, I know. We understood that you like the webinar. The USDA has conducted some webinars. The School Nutrition Association has a summer food site and a summer feeding toolkit, and they provide some training. So I could scout a little further. So beyond just the ones that we've done specifically for Vermont, there's some more general trainings, and some of them are more or less helpful because Vermont is small, and sometimes these other places are big cities and, have different issues, but you might get helpful information that way. So Karen, especially for you, but I'll think about it for others too, putting together a list of other webinar offerings that have happened recently.
And just to reiterate, Gail and Karen both ask, please send the links.
Okay. I hear you. We will definitely do that, everybody. We will send out the links to the other two webinars in this series and some other resources as well.
So we're not seeing any other questions right now. So I think we're going to move towards wrapping it up.
So just as people have been sharing on the webinar today, and as Nancy and I have been saying, here are some next steps for you to take. In addition to, we will send out some resources for you to use. But we really encourage you to have more conversations with your colleagues in the summer food service and also with members of your community. There are a lot of resources that you can tap into, as you heard Michelle sharing earlier on the call, that can help you address and move forward on these issues that we've discussed today and all the other ones that might come up as you are getting ready for your summer program. So ask for help in getting the word out and creating additional sites, arranging transportation, hosting activities, and anything else you might need. I think the key is to keep asking your community to get involved until you get, some response with that.
And I really appreciate hearing from everybody. It's great to have ideas, and I like this idea that maybe we should be developing more connections with the webinars. We need to be looking at travel and gas costs and all that. So I'm glad to hear the positive response, and any other ideas you have, really would like to hear from you. In another slide, we're going to put up our contact information. So anytime you have questions, anytime you have ideas, I really like hearing from you. And, of course, thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. We have some deadlines coming up around getting your applications in online. The federal guideline for completing your online application is June 15th for the Summer Food Service Program, and we say June 1st in Vermont, and we even have earlier deadlines if you want commodities. That would be May 15th. So if you have any questions about completing your application online, or if you're not even there yet, if you haven't sent in your intent to participate, please do so. I've sent a mailing out today for those who have sent in Seamless Summer intents with instructions on updating your online application. That happens on a little different timeline, so I know it gets confusing. Just call me or write if you have any questions. And, as you know, that we have to get all that information done online so that you can file your claims there.
All right, so within the next couple of days, we will send everyone a link to this presentation and the other webinars in this series. And it will also include our contact information, which we're showing you on the screen. But before we wrap up, we have another question. So I'm going to hand this back to Laura for a minute.
Actually, Gail is asking how she can ask a question that relates to breakfast. And Gail, you can just type it right into that question box, and I will read it, and Nancy Enenor will answer it. In the meantime, Karen Howery has a question, and she said, do we receive any type of verification that we have attended this webinar? We keep it for our records.
I could send you something that's verification. I have to keep track of who's attended, because there's for the Summer Food Service Program, every sponsor is required to send somebody to training every year. So I'll be keeping track of it on my end. Looks like Anor is saying she's also going to do something.
So tomorrow, I've already set up our webinar service to send everyone out an automatic acknowledgement thanking you for attending the webinar, and it has the webinar name in it. So you could print that out, and that would be a verification that you did attend. And in addition, we'll send you out more detailed information, but you will be getting that confirmation.
And Karen, if that isn't enough for you and you want something in addition, just shoot me a note and let me know. It's Nancy.
Okay, I'm not seeing Gail's question. Oh, here it comes. She says, and this may be something you need to refer her to someone else for, but she says, we have greatly increased our breakfast service, but putting breakfast in the 5th through 8 classrooms, by putting breakfast in the 5 through 8 classrooms, I am struggling, however, with accurate recording of who is eating. I place the appropriate breakfasts in bags.
So, Gail, you've switched over to schools now. sounds like, or maybe you're thinking about something similar happening in some of the.
No, it's not related to summer food. She's wondering where.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe I should give you a call. I think you need to have some sort of a roster in the classroom so the teacher or whoever, and I'm not sure how the food actually gets handed out in the classroom. So if it's delivered to the classroom, the teacher or somebody needs to be checking off on a roster who got the meal so that you can keep track for claiming. So, and lots of folks do that, so I could hook you up with other places that have gotten that. But maybe there's something else going on here that we need to talk about so that we could help you figure out the best way to do it. Maybe the kids are doing a grab and go and you're not recording on when they're taking them in the kitchen. So does it make sense for me to have a chat with you? I'll call you when I'm back in the office. Probably not till Friday, but I'll call you and we can have a chat about it.
And Gail says that would be fine. And then Deborah asks, is there a grant for breakfast in the classroom?
Not that I've heard of, Deb. But the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Grant is due May 12th. So if you're all thinking about that, you should be working on your grant.
Okay, all right. So again, if Nancy and I are available to you, our email addresses and phone numbers are up on the website, and you'll be getting them in an email to you as well. So if you have any questions about anything related to summer or school meals, give one of us a call, and we will work with you to get that question answered or the issue resolved. So I want to thank all of you for participating in this webinar this afternoon, and especially for all of your hard work ensuring that Vermont children don't go hungry and lose ground this summer. Each and every one of you is making a huge difference, and each and every site you support really, really matters. So thank you so much, and this concludes our webinar.